I was reviewing blueprints for a new office complex when my phone buzzed. The text from my mother made my blood freeze. "Your sister deserves this house after everything she's been through. You make good money now, so you'll handle the payments. First one's due next week?" I stared at the screen in complete disbelief. They'd given Madison our childhood home without even telling me, and now expected me to pay for it. I hadn't lived there for 8 years, had built my own life from scratch. My fingers moved before my brain caught up, asked the owner. The drive home from my engineering firm felt longer than usual as my mind raced through decades of family dysfunction. Madison, my 32-year-old sister, had perfected the art of being the perpetual victim. She dropped out of Colorado State University twice, first claiming her professors were too demanding, then blaming her roommates for being unsupportive. Each time our parents welcomed her back with open arms and excuses. "She's just creative," my mother Ellen would say whenever Madison quit another job after a few weeks. "Artists need understanding, not pressure." My father Frank would nod along, adding his favorite phrase, "Family sticks together through tough times." Meanwhile, I'd worked construction jobs every summer through high school, saved every penny for college, and graduated with a mechanical engineering degree debt-free, thanks to academic scholarships and relentless part-time work. At 28, I owned a 2-bedroom condo in downtown Denver, drove a reliable Honda Civic, and had built a career designing sustainable building systems. The family house sat in Lakewood, a comfortable suburb 30 minutes west of downtown Denver. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms with a small backyard, where Dad used to teach me how to throw a baseball. Grandpa Joe had bought it in 1978 for $45,000. When he passed 5 years ago, he left it to my parents mortgage-free, worth about $400,000 in today's market. "This will be yours and Madison's someday," Mom had told us at the funeral. "Your grandfather wanted his grandchildren to have security. I'd assumed that meant we'd inherit it together when our parents were gone, or at least have some say in major decisions affecting our family's biggest asset." My phone rang as I pulled into my condo's parking garage. Dad's name flashed on the screen. "Garrett, son, we need to talk about your mother's text." Frank's voice carried that forced cheerfulness he used when delivering bad news. "Your sister's going through a real rough patch right now. That boyfriend of hers, Ryan, he up and left her last month. She lost her job at the art gallery, too." "Dad, what does that have to do with me paying a mortgage on a house I don't own?" "Well, see, we thought you'd want to help family. You're doing real well for yourself, got that good job and everything. Madison, she needs stability. We figured this would give her something solid to build on." I sat in my car engine off, trying to process this logic. "You gave her the entire house. What about what Grandpa said about it being for both of us?" "Now don't get upset. We did what we thought was best. Madison's been living with us since Ryan left, and you know how your mother worries. We thought giving her the house would help her get back on her feet." "And the mortgage? The house was paid off when Grandpa died." Frank's pause lasted too long. "Well, we took out a small loan for some improvements. New roof, updated kitchen, that sort of thing. $1,500 a month isn't much for someone with your income." The pieces started falling into place. They'd mortgaged a debt-free house, given away an asset worth $400,000, and expected me to pay for their decision. No consultation, no family meeting, just an assumption that my success meant I owed them financial support for whatever choices they made. "Dad, did you ask Madison if she wanted the responsibility of home ownership, property taxes, maintenance repairs?" "She's excited about it, son. Posted all over that Facebook about finally having her own place. Says she's got plans for redecorating, maybe starting an art studio in the basement." I closed my eyes and counted to 10. Madison's plans usually involved spending money she didn't have on projects she'd abandon within weeks. Her art supplies already cluttered half of my parents' garage, gathering dust next to the pottery wheel she'd used twice, and the professional camera she'd bought for her brief photography phase. "What did the lawyer say when you transferred the deed?" I asked. Lawyer: "We didn't need a lawyer. Just went down to the county clerk's office and filled out the paperwork. Cost us $35 in filing fees." My engineering background had taught me to spot structural problems before they became catastrophic failures. This entire arrangement was built on a foundation of wishful thinking and financial ignorance. Madison had never managed money responsibly. My parents lived on Social Security and Dad's small pension, and they'd all assumed I'd subsidize their poor planning. Dad, I'm not paying the mortgage on a house Madison owns. If you wanted me involved in this decision, you should have included me before making it. But Garrett, she's your sister. Don't you want her to have security? I want her to have the security that comes from taking care of herself, not from manipulating family members into paying her bills. Frank's tone shifted from pleading to frustrated. Your mother's not going to be happy about this. She's already told Madison the payments were handled. Then you'll need to figure out another solution. Maybe Madison can get a job and pay her own mortgage like every other homeowner in America. I hung up before he could guilt-trip me further. Sitting in my car in the underground garage, I realized this wasn't just about money. This was about my parents' lifelong pattern of enabling Madison's irresponsibility while expecting me to clean up the consequences. The text from Mom that started this whole mess wasn't a request for help. It was a notification of a decision they'd made for me, without me. They'd gambled with our family's inheritance and expected me to cover their bet. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Can't wait to show you my new house? Mom says you're helping with payments. So sweet of you to support your little sister. 3 heart emojis followed her message. She genuinely believed this was normal, that her older brother owed her a $400,000 gift plus $1,500 a month for the privilege of her ownership. I forwarded her text to my friend Trevor, who'd graduated law school the same year I'd finished engineering. His response came back within minutes. Dude, please tell me you didn't agree to this insanity. Call me tomorrow. As I rode the elevator to my 6th-floor condo, I wondered how my family had reached this point. When had helping each other become one-sided financial exploitation? When had Madison's struggles become my responsibility to solve? Looking out my living room window at the Denver skyline, I realized my simple response to Mom's text had probably started a family war. But sometimes wars are necessary when peace requires sacrificing your principles and enabling destructive behavior that hurts everyone involved. Trevor's law office occupied the 15th floor of a downtown high-rise, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the South Platte River. We'd been friends since college, where he'd helped me navigate scholarship paperwork, while I'd tutored him through calculus. Now he specialized in real estate law, perfect for untangling the mess my family had created. Show me everything, Trevor said, gesturing to his conference table. I spread out the documents I'd obtained from the Jefferson County Clerk's office, the deed transfer, mortgage paperwork, and property tax records. Trevor studied the papers with the intensity he'd once brought to differential equations. His expression grew increasingly concerned as he flipped through pages. Garrett, this transfer was rushed. Look at the date stamps. They filed the deed change on a Monday, took out the mortgage on Thursday of the same week. That's not normal timeline for major financial decisions. He pointed to Madison's signature on several forms. Your sister signed documents she clearly didn't understand? See how her signature changes style between pages? That suggests she was signing multiple forms quickly without reading them. What are the legal implications? For you, zero obligation to pay anything. You're not on the deed, not on the mortgage, not liable for their debts. But there's something else here that bothers me. Trevor pulled up property records on his computer. Your grandfather's will. Do you have a copy? Somewhere at home? Why, these rushed transfers sometimes violate inheritance conditions. Many people include language about property staying in the family or being distributed fairly among heirs. If your grandfather had such provisions, this transfer might be legally questionable. While Trevor researched, I checked Madison's social media on my phone. Her latest posts painted a picture of someone living in a fantasy world. Photos of expensive home decor she'd ordered, online screenshots of renovation ideas she'd saved from Pinterest, and selfies taken in my beautiful new kitchen. One post particularly stung, finally getting what I deserve after years of struggle. Some people just get lucky in life, but others have to fight for recognition. Grateful my family finally sees my worth. The comments were a mix of congratulations from friends who didn't know the full story and heart emojis from our extended family. Aunt Patricia had written, "So proud of you, sweetie. You've earned this." "Found something," Trevor said, looking up from his screen. "Your grandfather's will contained specific language about the house. Quote, said property shall remain within the family bloodline and be distributed equitably among my grandchildren to ensure fair inheritance for future generations." What does that mean? It means your parents violated the inheritance terms by giving the entire property to one grandchild. Technically, you have grounds to challenge the transfer. My phone rang. Madison's name appeared on the screen. "Garrett, I just talked to Mom and Dad. They said you're being difficult about the house payments. What's wrong with you?" Her voice carried that whiny tone she'd perfected as a child, the one that usually made adults give her whatever she wanted. "Madison, I'm not paying the mortgage on your house." "But it's family. You make good money, and I'm struggling right now. After everything I've been through with Ryan leaving and losing my job, don't you think I deserve some support?" What I think is that home ownership comes with financial responsibility. If you can't afford the payments, maybe you shouldn't own a house. God, you're so selfish. I've sacrificed so much for this family. Remember when I took care of Grandma Joe's cat after he died, and I helped Mom paint the guest bedroom last year? You got the easy life good job, no problems. I deserve this house. The logic made my head spin. Taking care of a cat for 2 weeks and spending one Saturday painting somehow equaled deserving a $400,000 house plus monthly mortgage payments from me. Madison, did you read the mortgage documents before signing them? What documents? Mom and Dad handled all that legal stuff. I just signed where they told me to. Trevor was listening to my side of the conversation, making notes. He gestured for me to keep her talking. "Do you understand that as the owner, you're responsible for property taxes, insurance repairs, and maintenance?" What are you talking about? Mom said you were handling the financial stuff." "I'm the owner, so I get to live here and decorate however I want." "You just pay the bills because you can afford it." After hanging up, Trevor shook his head in disbelief. "Your sister has no idea what she signed up for. This isn't home ownership. It's glorified babysitting with you as the financial guardian." "What are my options?" "Several. First, you could do nothing and let them figure out their own mess. The mortgage will go into default when they can't make payments, and Madison will lose the house to foreclosure. That would destroy her credit and probably my parents too, since they're likely co-signers. Option 2, challenge the deed transfer based on your grandfather's will. The inheritance language gives you standing to claim equal ownership rights. That would mean a family lawsuit. Option 3, hire a private investigator to check if Madison's ex-boyfriend Ryan has any criminal history. These rushed property transfers sometimes involve financial manipulation by outside parties. I stared out the window at the Denver traffic below. Each option felt like choosing between different types of family destruction. There's something else, Trevor continued. The mortgage application lists Madison's income as $36,000 per year from the art gallery job she'd already lost by the time they filed paperwork. That's potentially mortgage fraud. You think my parents lied on loan documents? I think someone provided misleading information, whether intentionally or not. Mortgage companies don't typically approve $1,500 monthly payments for someone making $3,000 a month, especially with no significant down payment or cosigner income verification. Trevor's private investigator contact, a former Denver police detective named Marcus Williams, called back within an hour. Interesting case you've got, Marcus said through the speakerphone. Ryan Patterson, age 29, has 2 previous arrests for financial fraud in Colorado Springs and Grand Junction. Nothing that stuck in court but a pattern of targeting women with inherited property or recent windfalls. My blood chilled. You think he was using Madison to get access to the house? I think your sister became a target the moment your family inheritance became public knowledge. Property transfers are public records. Patterson likely monitors them for opportunities. Trevor leaned forward. What kind of opportunities? Guy gets involved with someone who just inherited property, gains their trust, encourages them to leverage the asset for investments or business opportunities, then disappears with whatever cash or credit they can extract. In your sister's case, he probably encouraged the house transfer and mortgage. But he left before the transfer happened? I protested. Did he, or did he step back temporarily to avoid appearing connected to the financial arrangements? These guys are patient. They'll disappear for a while, then return once the property situation is settled. I thought about Madison's recent social media posts announcing her new homeownership status. If Ryan was monitoring her accounts, he'd know exactly when to make his next move. What should we do? Trevor asked. Document everything. Get copies of all property records, mortgage, documents, and any communication about the transfer. If Patterson resurfaces and starts pushing for additional loans or property modifications, you'll need evidence of the pattern. Driving home that evening, I realized this situation was far more complicated than family drama over mortgage payments. Madison wasn't just irresponsible. She might be the target of a sophisticated fraud scheme that had manipulated my entire family into making financially disastrous decisions. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Heard Madison got the family house. Good for her. Maybe we can work something out soon. Ryan. He was already making his next move. The family pressure campaign began the next morning. Aunt Patricia called while I was reviewing structural plans for a new hospital project, her voice carrying the righteousness of someone who'd heard only one side of the story. Garrett, honey, your mother is beside herself. She says you're refusing to help your sister with house payments. That doesn't sound like the nephew I raised. Patricia was Mom's older sister, a retired school principal who'd never married or had children of her own. She'd always treated Madison and me like her surrogate kids, but Madison had mastered the art of presenting herself as the victim in every situation. Aunt Patricia, what exactly did Mom tell you about this house situation? She said Madison finally has a chance at stability after that awful boyfriend broke her heart, but you're being selfish about money. Your parents are struggling on their fixed income and you're the successful one in the family. The twisted version of events made my jaw clench. Did she mention they gave Madison a $400,000 house without consulting me, then expected me to pay the mortgage? Well, no, but family helps family, Garrett. Your grandfather would be disappointed in this attitude. Before I could respond, she'd hung up. Within an hour, my phone rang again. This time it was my cousin Derek from Mom's side, a construction foreman who'd always treated family loyalty like a sacred duty. Dude, what's this about you screwing over Madison? My mom says you're being a real jerk about some house payments. Derek, did anyone explain that I don't own this house, don't live in this house, and had no say in any decisions about this house? Oh man, I don't know all the details. I just know your sister's crying and your parents are stressed. Can't you just help out? The phone calls continued throughout the week. Uncle Robert, cousin Jennifer, family friends who'd heard garbled versions of the story through the suburban gossip network. Each conversation followed the same pattern. Someone had heard Madison was struggling, and I was being unsupportive. Madison's social media campaign ramped up in parallel with the phone pressure. Her posts grew increasingly emotional and manipulative. When your own family turns their back on you in your darkest hour, she wrote Tuesday evening, some people value money more than relationships, praying for wisdom and strength to forgive those who choose greed over love. Wednesday's post was more direct, amazing how success changes people. Remember when we were kids and promised to always take care of each other? Guess promises don't mean much when bank accounts get bigger. Thursday brought a lengthy essay about surviving family betrayal that painted me as a cold-hearted businessman who'd forgotten his humble roots. The post garnered dozens of supportive comments from friends and extended family members who knew nothing about the actual circumstances. Stay strong, girl. Some people forget where they came from. Blood should be thicker than money. You deserve so much better treatment. The comment section became an echo chamber of righteous indignation directed at me based on Madison's carefully crafted narrative of victimhood. Friday evening, my phone rang with an unknown local number. "Is this Garrett? This is Ryan. I think we need to talk." "I have nothing to say to you." "Actually, you do. I've been talking to Madison about her situation, and I think there might be ways to help everyone involved." I walked onto my condo balcony looking out at the Denver skyline while processing the calculated tone of his voice. "Madison told me you're having trouble with the family house arrangement. That's unfortunate, man. Family should stick together, especially when there's good money to be made." "What are you talking about? That house is worth $400,000, right? But your parents only took out a small mortgage. There's a lot of equity sitting there doing nothing. Madison and I have been discussing some investment opportunities that could benefit everyone." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. Ryan hadn't abandoned Madison. He'd strategically withdrawn to let the property transfer process complete without his visible involvement. Now he was returning to phase 2 of whatever scheme he'd orchestrated. "Madison says you're good with numbers, being an engineer and all. Maybe you'd be interested in hearing about some real estate development opportunities I've been working on. We could use that house as collateral for some bigger deals." Ryan Madison doesn't have any money for investments. That's where you come in. With your income and her property ownership, we could secure some serious funding. I've got connections with private lenders who work with family investment groups. The audacity was breathtaking. He was suggesting I should not only pay Madison's mortgage, but also help her leverage the house for additional loans to fund his investment opportunities. I'm not interested in any deals involving Madison's house. Think about it, man. Family real estate partnerships can be really profitable. Madison deserves to benefit from her property ownership, and you've got the financial credibility to make things happen. I'll be in touch." He hung up before I could respond. Within minutes, my phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Ryan's back. He says he has amazing ideas for helping me make money with the house. Maybe we can all work together on this. Family business." She'd added heart emojis and a house emoji, as if this were exciting news instead of a red flag visible from space. I called Trevor immediately. "This is exactly what Marcus warned us about," Trevor said after hearing about Ryan's return. "He's moving into phase 2. First, manipulate the target into property ownership. Second, use that property as leverage for additional financial schemes." "What kind of schemes?" "Could be anything. Second mortgages, home equity loans, private lending arrangements. The goal is to extract as much cash as possible from the property value while leaving the owner holding worthless debt." "And Madison has no idea." "Your sister sees a charming boyfriend returning with exciting business opportunities. She doesn't see a predator who's been planning this exploitation since before they first met." Saturday morning brought a knock on my condo door. Madison stood in the hallway holding a coffee tray and wearing what I recognized as a new outfit she couldn't afford. "Surprise I brought us coffee so we can talk about the house situation like adults?" She pushed past me into my living room, settling onto my couch, like this was a routine family visit instead of an intervention. "Ryan explained everything to me. You're worried about the financial arrangements, right? That's so responsible of you. He says there are ways to make the house payments easier while also creating investment opportunities for both of us. Madison Ryan has a criminal history. He's been arrested for financial fraud." Her face hardened immediately. "That's a lie. He told me you might try to poison me against him because you're jealous of our relationship." "I'm not jealous. I'm concerned that you're being manipulated by someone who targets people in exactly your situation." "My situation? You mean finally having something good in my life? Finally being appreciated by someone who sees my potential, instead of constantly judging me?" She stood up, pacing around my living room like a caged animal. "You think I'm too stupid to make my own decisions? You think I need Big Brother to protect me from the scary world? Well, guess what? I'm 32 years old, I own a house, and I have someone who believes in me. Madison home ownership means responsibility. You can't just enjoy the benefits while expecting other people to handle the costs and risks. There you go again, lecturing me about responsibility. You got lucky with your engineering job and your perfect life, and now you think that makes you better than everyone else. I didn't get lucky. I worked construction every summer, studied every night, and graduated without debt because I planned and sacrificed for my goals. Oh, please. You've always been mom and dad's favorite, even if they won't admit it. The responsible son with the good job who never causes problems. Meanwhile, I'm the artistic disappointment who can't do anything right. Her voice cracked with genuine emotion, revealing the pain underneath the manipulation tactics. Madison being artistic isn't a disappointment, but using your struggles as an excuse to avoid adult responsibilities isn't fair to anyone, especially yourself. Ryan understands my struggles. He says I've been held back by people who don't appreciate my talents. With the house as a foundation, I can finally pursue my dreams without worrying about money. What dreams? What specific plans do you have? Art studio in the basement? Maybe hosting creative workshops, online sales of my photography. Ryan knows investors who fund artistic ventures. Everything she described required substantial upfront investment with uncertain returns. Ryan was setting her up to believe she needed immediate access to the house's equity to fund these opportunities. Has Ryan asked you to sign any loan documents? We're just exploring options right now. He says the key is acting quickly while interest rates are still favorable. Red flags multiplied with every word. I realized Ryan had probably been coaching her on this entire conversation, preparing her responses to my likely objections. Madison, please promise me you won't sign any financial documents without having a lawyer review them first. Why would I need a lawyer? Ryan handles all the business details. He says too many lawyers just complicate simple deals and cost unnecessary money. She gathered her purse and headed for the door. I hope you change your mind about helping with the house payments. Ryan says family investments work best when everyone participates equally. After she left, I sat on my couch staring at the untouched coffee she'd brought. The sophisticated manipulation was staggering. Ryan had identified every vulnerability in my family system and exploited them perfectly. Madison genuinely believed she'd found love and opportunity. My parents thought they'd provided security for their struggling daughter. Everyone felt good about their decisions while walking directly into a financial trap that would destroy them all. My phone buzzed with a text from Ryan. Hope you and Madison had a good talk. Looking forward to discussing those investment opportunities soon. Family partnerships are always the most rewarding. The first mortgage payment came due on a Tuesday. Dad called that evening, his voice strained with the kind of stress I hadn't heard since Grandpa Joe's funeral. Son, we need to talk face to face. Can you come over tonight? The drive to my parents' house in Littleton felt like traveling back in time. The same route I'd taken countless times as a kid past the King Soopers, where Mom used to buy groceries, the elementary school, where I'd learned to ride a bike in the parking lot on weekends. Their modest ranch house looked smaller than I remembered, with Dad's carefully maintained garden showing early signs of neglect. The porch light flickered intermittently, a minor repair that would have been fixed immediately in better times. Mom greeted me at the door with puffy eyes and a forced smile. Garrett, honey, thank you for coming. We've made your favorite pot roast. The dining room table was set for 3 with the good china we'd used for special occasions. This performance of normalcy felt desperate, like they were trying to recreate the family dinners of my childhood to soften whatever bad news was coming. Dad sat heavily in his usual chair, looking older than his 68 years. Son, I'm going to be straight with you. We can't afford these house payments. How much is your monthly budget short? About $800. Our Social Security and my pension cover our basic expenses here, but adding $1,500 for Madison's house. We just don't have it. Mom fidgeted with her napkin, avoiding eye contact. We thought you'd understand family obligations, Garrett. When your grandfather helped us with your college fund, he didn't ask questions or demand guarantees. Grandpa contributed $5,000 to my education fund over 4 years, and I paid him back with interest after graduation. You're asking me to pay $18,000 a year indefinitely for a house I don't own. Frank's fork clattered against his plate. It's not about the money, son. It's about taking care of family. Then why didn't you take care of the family asset Grandpa left us? That house was paid off safe and could have provided security for all of us. Instead, you mortgaged it and gave it away. The conversation continued in circles for an hour. My parents alternated between guilt trips and emotional manipulation, trying every approach that had worked when I was younger. Frank appealed to masculine responsibility. A man takes care of his family, especially his sister. Ellen tried maternal disappointment. I never thought I'd raised a son who'd abandon his family in crisis. Finally, Frank's composure cracked. Damn it, Garrett, you don't understand what we've been dealing with. Madison? She's not just irresponsible. She's been... He stopped looking at Ellen for permission to continue. She's been what Dad... Ellen's voice dropped to a whisper. She's been threatening us, honey, for years. The room went silent except for the kitchen clock ticking. This was not the conversation I'd expected. What kind of threats? Frank rubbed his face with both hands. Started about 5 years ago after she moved back home the second time. Whenever we'd suggest she get a job or contribute to household expenses, she'd threaten to hurt herself. Said life wasn't worth living if her own family didn't support her dreams. At first we thought it was just emotional outbursts, Ellen continued. Young people say dramatic things when they're upset, but it got worse. Worse how? She started threatening to tell people things about me, Frank said quietly. False things. Inappropriate behavior that never happened. Said if we ever cut her off financially, she'd make sure the whole neighborhood knew what kind of man I really was. My mother was crying now. We couldn't risk that, Garrett. Your father coached Little League for 15 years, volunteers at the church, runs the Neighborhood Watch program. False accusations would destroy his reputation in this community. Has she actually tried to hurt herself? 3 times, Ellen whispered. Twice with pills once she cut her wrists. Not deep enough for real damage, but enough for emergency room visits and police reports. The 3rd time she called us from the hospital saying she'd tried to overdose because we didn't appreciate her. The picture of Madison I'd carried in my head crumbled completely. I'd seen her as merely irresponsible and entitled. I hadn't understood she was psychologically manipulating our parents with threats of suicide and false accusations. The house wasn't just about giving her stability, Frank continued. We hoped that if she owned something valuable, something that proved we loved her, the threats would stop. But they didn't stop. She wants more now. Says the house is just the beginning of what we owe her for years of emotional neglect. Last week, she suggested we take out a reverse mortgage on this house to give her cash for business investments. Ellen sobbed quietly. We're prisoners in our own family, Garrett. We can't say no because she'll either hurt herself or destroy your father's reputation with lies. We can't afford to say yes because we'll lose everything we've worked for. Why didn't you tell me about this before? We were ashamed, Frank admitted. What kind of parents raise a daughter who threatens suicide to get money? What kind of family dynamic creates that level of manipulation? I sat in stunned silence processing this revelation. My parents weren't just enabling Madison's irresponsibility. They were being psychologically terrorized by their own daughter. There's more, Ellen said quietly. She's been taking money from us for years. Small amounts at first, $20 or $40 from my purse. Then she started using our credit cards when we were asleep ordering things online. Last year, she forged your father's signature on checks twice. We covered for her, Frank said. Told the bank it was a mistake. Paid the overdraft fees, hoped she'd stop if we just gave her what she needed. How much has she stolen total? About $12,000 over 3 years, Ellen whispered. We stopped keeping track because it made us too angry, and anger seemed to trigger her worst threats. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. Had such a good talk with Ryan about house plans tonight. Can't wait to show you the investment proposal he's putting together. You're going to love the numbers. I showed my parents the message. Frank closed his eyes in defeat. She doesn't see it as manipulation, Ellen said. In her mind, we owe her everything because life has been unfair to her. She genuinely believes she's the victim in every situation. What about professional help, therapy, counseling, psychiatric evaluation? We've suggested it dozens of times. She says therapists don't understand creative personalities and that medication would suppress her artistic abilities. The one time we insisted, she threatened to accuse your father of abuse if we forced her into treatment. The doorbell rang, interrupting our conversation. Through the front window, we could see Madison's car in the driveway. She has a key, Ellen said nervously. We never changed the locks after giving her the house. Madison's voice carried from the entryway. Mom, Dad, I saw Garrett's car outside. Perfect timing. She appeared in the dining room doorway with Ryan beside her, both carrying folders and looking excited about something. Family meeting, Madison announced. Ryan has the most amazing proposal for all of us. This is going to solve everything. Ryan smiled with the confidence of someone who'd orchestrated this exact scenario. Good evening, folks. Madison's told me so much about your family. I think you're going to be very interested in what we've put together. He spread documents across our dining table while Madison beamed with excitement. We can turn this house situation into a real wealth-building opportunity for everyone involved. Madison's property ownership is just the foundation. With the right leverage and family investment structure, we're talking about serious money. Frank and Ellen looked terrified, trapped between their daughter's expectations and their complete inability to afford any additional financial commitments. What exactly are you proposing? I asked. Home equity line of credit secured against Madison's house with family members as co-signers to improve loan terms. We use that cash to purchase additional rental properties, creating income streams for everyone involved. The scheme was elegant in its simplicity. Drain the equity from the house my grandfather had paid off, use my income and parents' signatures to secure additional debt, then invest the borrowed money in Ryan's opportunities, while my family held all the liability. How much are we talking about? Frank asked weakly. Initial credit line of $200,000 against the house equity, then acquisition loans for 3 to 4 rental properties over the next year. Conservative projections show everyone doubling their investment within 18 months. Madison clasped her hands together like she was watching a Christmas morning surprise unfold. Isn't it perfect? We all work together and everyone benefits. Ryan says family investment groups are the most successful because trust eliminates a lot of business complications. Ellen and Frank looked at me desperately, hoping I'd find a way to refuse that wouldn't trigger Madison's threats. I need time to review these numbers, I said carefully. Time is actually a factor, Ryan replied smoothly. Interest rates are moving, and the rental properties I've identified won't stay available long. Madison's eager to get started, and I'd hate to see the family miss out on this opportunity because of hesitation. Then you'll have to miss out, I said directly. I'm not co-signing any loans or investments. Madison's face transformed from excitement to fury in seconds. See, I told you he'd be selfish about this. He makes good money and could easily help us get started, but he'd rather keep everything for himself. Madison, this isn't about selfishness. This is about not wanting to watch you get exploited by someone with a criminal history. Ryan's expression never changed, but his eyes went cold. I think there's been some miscommunication about my background, Garrett. Maybe we should address those concerns privately. There's nothing private about public arrest records. Madison stepped between us like she was protecting Ryan from my accusations. Stop lying about him. He's the only person who's ever believed in my potential. You just can't stand seeing me happy. The psychological manipulation was textbook perfect. Madison genuinely believed she was defending her loving boyfriend from her cruel brother's unfounded attacks. She had no idea she was watching her family's destroyer position himself for the final phase of his operation. I'm leaving, I said, standing up from the table. Mom, Dad, please don't sign any documents until you've had them reviewed by an attorney. We won't need attorneys if we're all family, Ryan said pleasantly. Legal fees just reduce everyone's profits. As I walked to the front door, I could hear Madison's voice rising behind me. This is exactly why I needed my own house. Everyone in this family treats me like a child who can't make her own decisions. Well, I'm 32 years old, and I'm done asking permission for my life. Driving home, I realized my parents were trapped in an impossible situation. If they refused Ryan's schemes, Madison would probably carry out her threats of self-harm or false accusations. If they participated, they'd lose their home and retirement security to fund his fraud operation. Either way, my family was being destroyed by someone who'd identified and exploited every weakness in our dynamic. The only question was whether I could find a way to stop him before the damage became irreversible. Trevor's emergency meeting was set for 8 o'clock the next morning. His office overlooked the quiet streets of downtown Denver, where early commuters hurried through autumn air toward their ordinary problems that suddenly seemed enviable in their simplicity. This has escalated beyond property law into criminal territory, Trevor said after reviewing my notes from the previous evening. Ryan's timeline is accelerating because he knows he's being watched. Marcus Williams joined us via speakerphone from his investigation office across town. I've got updates on Ryan Patterson that change everything. His operation is bigger than we initially suspected. How big? I asked. He's part of an organized group targeting inherited properties across the Front Range. 7 confirmed cases in the past 2 years, all following similar patterns. Young woman inherits property or gains ownership through family transfer, meets charming boyfriend property, gets leverage for investment opportunities. Boyfriend disappears with liquidated assets. Trevor leaned forward. What happened to the other victims? 3 lost their properties to foreclosure. 2 declared bankruptcy. 1 attempted suicide when she realized the extent of the fraud. The 7th case is still ongoing in Larimer County. My stomach dropped. Madison could end up like that. Your sister's case is actually more sophisticated because Ryan has involved your entire family in the leverage scheme. Instead of just targeting one victim, he's positioned to extract resources from your parents' property and your income stream simultaneously. What about the local police? Can't they arrest him based on the pattern? Pattern recognition isn't enough for criminal charges, Marcus explained. We need evidence of specific crimes, forged documents, false loan applications, theft of assets. Right now, he's careful to keep everything technically legal until he's ready to disappear. Trevor spread legal documents across his conference table. But we've got something Ryan doesn't know about. The grandfather's will language gives us leverage to challenge the entire property transfer. How does that help? If we can prove the deed transfer violated inheritance terms, Madison's ownership becomes legally questionable. That invalidates any loans or credit lines secured against the property. Even if she already signed documents. Especially if she signed documents, loans secured against illegally transferred property are void from the beginning. Ryan's entire scheme collapses if Madison doesn't actually own the house. Marcus added context through the speaker. I've been monitoring social media and public records. Ryan's already filed preliminary paperwork for a home equity line of credit using Madison's property as collateral. The application lists your income and your parents' signatures as additional security. How is that possible? We haven't signed anything. Identity theft and document forgery. He's probably using information Madison provided innocently during their conversations. Social security numbers, employment details, banking information she thought she was sharing with her loving boyfriend. Trevor was already drafting legal papers on his laptop. We're filing an emergency injunction to freeze all property transactions related to the house. If Ryan tries to access any loans or credit lines, the bank will be legally required to reject them. What about Madison? She'll think I'm sabotaging her relationship and business opportunities. Madison's going to be angry regardless of what happens next. The question is whether you want her angry at you for protecting her or destroyed financially, while still grateful to Ryan for ruining her life. My phone buzzed with a text from Mom. Madison and Ryan are meeting with a mortgage broker this afternoon. She asked us to bring our financial documents to co-sign some paperwork. What should we do? I showed the message to Trevor and Marcus. That's it, Trevor said. He's making his move today. Once those documents are signed, your parents become liable for whatever debts he creates. How do we stop this? Call your parents right now. Tell them not to sign anything and not to provide any financial documents. Then we file the injunction immediately and contact the mortgage broker to alert them about potential fraud. I called Frank while Trevor finalized legal paperwork. Dad, where are you right now? Driving to Madison's house. She called this morning crying, saying Ryan found an amazing opportunity, but they need to act fast. Some rental property going into foreclosure that they can buy below market value. Dad, listen carefully. Do not sign any documents today. Do not provide Social Security numbers, bank statements, or any financial information. But Garrett Madison says this is her chance to build real wealth. Ryan showed her projection charts indicating substantial returns. Dad, Ryan is a criminal who's been using Madison to steal your family's property. I'm filing legal papers right now to protect the house from his schemes. I don't understand. Madison seems so happy with him. She's happy because she doesn't know she's being manipulated. Please just trust me until we can explain everything properly. I could hear Ellen's voice in the background asking Frank what was wrong. Son, your mother and I are scared. Madison threatened to cut off all family contact if we don't support her business plans with Ryan. She says this is her test of whether we really love her. The psychological manipulation had reached crisis level. Madison was forcing my parents to choose between protecting their financial security and maintaining a relationship with their daughter. Dad, those aren't the only two choices. There's a third option: expose Ryan's criminal behavior and help Madison see that she's being used. How do we do that without her hating us forever? Trevor gestured for the phone. Mr. Davidson, this is Trevor Martinez, Garrett's attorney. I need you to understand something important. Ryan Patterson is part of a criminal organization that has defrauded multiple families across Colorado using exactly the same tactics he's using on Madison. Are you sure about this? We have documentation of 7 similar cases, including criminal charges filed against his associates in other counties. Your daughter isn't in love. She's being victimized by a professional con artist. There was a long pause before Frank spoke again. What do you need us to do? Go to Madison's meeting, but don't sign anything. Try to record the conversation if possible. We need evidence of Ryan making false claims about investment opportunities or pressuring family members to provide financial guarantees. Ellen's got that voice recorder app on her phone. Perfect. And remember, anything Ryan says about guaranteed returns or risk-free investments is likely illegal securities fraud. After hanging up, Trevor worked frantically on legal documents while Marcus coordinated with Denver police detectives who'd been tracking Ryan's organization. The mortgage broker is Pinnacle Financial Services on South Broadway, Marcus reported. I've contacted them about potential fraud in the Patterson application. They're cooperating with the investigation. What kind of cooperation? I asked. They'll record the entire meeting and alert us if Ryan tries to pressure anyone into signing documents immediately. Standard mortgage applications require several days of processing, but Ryan's probably promising same-day approval through special connections. Trevor's phone rang. The caller ID showed Jefferson County District Attorney's Office. Trevor Martinez? Yes, we're prepared to provide evidence. This afternoon would be perfect. Thank you. He hung up with a grim smile. District Attorney's Office has been building a case against Ryan's organization. They want our evidence and are prepared to make arrests today if we can provide documentation of attempted fraud. They'll arrest him at Madison's meeting. If he commits crimes during the meeting, forging signatures, if he's making false statements on loan applications, promising guaranteed returns on investments, any of those actions constitute felonies. My phone rang. Madison's name appeared on the screen. Garrett, I need you to come to my house right now. Ryan says the mortgage broker wants to meet all family members involved in the investment group. Madison, I'm not involved in any investment group. Stop being difficult. This is important for everyone's financial future. Ryan says family unity is essential for getting the best loan terms. I'm not coming, and I strongly advise you not to sign any documents until you've had them reviewed by an independent attorney. Why are you trying to sabotage my happiness? Ryan says people like you can't stand seeing others succeed because it threatens your ego. The manipulation talking points were perfectly crafted to push Madison's emotional buttons while isolating her from family members who might protect her. Madison has Ryan asked you to provide social security numbers or financial information for other family members. We're all going to be business partners. Of course, we need financial information to structure the investments properly. Did you give him my social security number? Ryan needed it for the mortgage application. You're going to be so grateful when you see the returns we generate. I gestured frantically to Trevor, who immediately began typing on his laptop. Madison, did you sign any documents with my personal information on them? Just preliminary paperwork to get the process started. Ryan says final documents come later, but banks want to see family commitment up front. Trevor handed me a note: identity theft and mortgage fraud. We have enough for immediate arrest. Madison, I need you to listen very carefully. Ryan has been using your information and mine to commit federal crimes. There are police officers who want to arrest him today. You're lying. You're so jealous of our success that you're making up stories to break us up. Check his criminal background yourself. Ryan Patterson arrested in Colorado Springs and Grand Junction for financial fraud. It's public record. He told me you'd try to poison me against him with lies. You can't stand that someone finally appreciates me for who I am. She hung up before I could explain further. Trevor was already on the phone with the district attorney's office. Yes, we have confirmation of identity theft and fraudulent mortgage applications. The meeting is scheduled for 2:30 at the subject's residence. We'll have the family's cooperation in recording evidence. The next 3 hours would determine whether my family survived Ryan's criminal operation intact or joined his previous victims in financial ruin and emotional devastation. Marcus called with final intelligence. Ryan's associates are monitoring police frequencies. If they detect law enforcement activity, the whole group disappears immediately. The arrest has to happen during the meeting while he's actively committing crimes. Everything depended on Madison's meeting proceeding normally, while we documented enough criminal behavior to justify immediate arrest. If Ryan suspected a trap, he'd vanish and surface in another state targeting a different family. But if the operation succeeded, we'd not only save Madison from financial destruction, but provide evidence to protect other families from the same predatory scheme. The call came at 3:15 in the afternoon. Mom's voice was shaking so badly I could hardly understand her words. Garrett, you need to come to Madison's house right now. There are police cars everywhere, and they've arrested Ryan. Madison is hysterical. I was already in my Honda driving toward Lakewood while Trevor coordinated with the district attorney's office from his law office. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Department had moved faster than expected after reviewing the recorded evidence from the mortgage broker meeting. Madison's neighborhood looked like a crime scene. 3 patrol cars lined the street, their red and blue lights reflecting off the afternoon sunlight. Neighbors stood in their front yards whispering to each other, while children pressed their faces against windows trying to understand the excitement. Detective Sarah Williams met me at the front door, a thin woman in her 40s, with the calm demeanor of someone who'd handled dozens of financial fraud cases. Mr. Davidson, I'm Detective Williams. Your parents provided excellent cooperation in documenting Mr. Patterson's criminal activity. We arrested him 20 minutes ago. What charges? Identity theft, mortgage fraud, securities fraud, and conspiracy to commit wire fraud. He was attempting to forge your signature on loan documents while your mother recorded the conversation. Through the front window, I could see Madison pacing frantically around her living room, while Ellen sat on the couch looking exhausted. Frank stood near the kitchen entrance, still holding Mom's phone with the voice recording app. What exactly happened at the meeting? I asked Detective Williams. Patterson brought pre-filled loan applications with forged family signatures and false income information. He instructed your sister to sign documents transferring power of attorney for financial decisions related to the property. Then he attempted to pressure your parents into providing banking information for immediate wire transfers. Immediate wire transfers for what? $25,000 as a good faith deposit for a rental property purchase? The property doesn't exist. It was a complete fabrication designed to extract cash while the fraudulent loans were being processed. Detective Williams showed me photographs taken during the arrest. Ryan's briefcase contained multiple sets of forged documents for different families, business cards for non-existent investment companies, and detailed notes about Madison's family financial situation. He had social security numbers, bank account information, employment details, and property values for your entire family. Your sister provided most of it innocently during conversations she thought were about their relationship. What happens now? Patterson's being held on $200,000 bail while we investigate connections to similar fraud cases across Colorado. His cell phone contained contact information for other victims and evidence of coordination with associates in different counties. Can Madison's property ownership be protected from future schemes? That's a civil law matter, but the district attorney's office is working with your attorney to address inheritance violations and fraudulent transfers. I walked into the house where my family was experiencing the emotional aftermath of Ryan's arrest. Madison sat curled in a corner of her couch, crying with the devastating realization that her loving boyfriend had been manipulating her for months. "He recorded everything," she whispered when she saw me. Detective Williams showed me his notes about our conversations. He wrote down every detail about Grandpa's house, our family money situations, even things I told him about your job and income. Ellen reached over to squeeze Madison's hand. "Honey, this isn't your fault. He's a professional criminal who targets people in exactly your situation. But I trusted him completely. I gave him everything he asked for because I thought we were building a future together." Frank cleared his throat. Son Detective Williams explained how these schemes work. Ryan researches inherited properties through public records, then manufactures opportunities to meet the new owners. Madison never had a chance to see through his manipulation. What about the house, the mortgage payments? Trevor arrived as we were discussing financial implications. He'd brought copies of the emergency injunction that froze all property transactions related to Madison's house. The fraudulent mortgage is void because it was obtained using false information, Trevor explained to the family. The bank will reverse all loan documents and transactions once the criminal investigation concludes. Does that mean the house goes back to being debt-free? Madison asked hopefully. Not exactly. Your parents did take a legitimate mortgage before the Ryan situation developed. That debt still exists and still requires monthly payments. The room went silent as we absorbed the reality. Ryan's arrest prevented further fraud, but didn't solve the original problem of my parents' inability to afford mortgage payments on a house they'd given away. Detective Williams returned from her patrol car with additional information. Mr. Patterson's been using this scheme across multiple states for at least 3 years. We've contacted law enforcement agencies in Wyoming, New Mexico, and Utah about similar cases. Your family's cooperation might help recover assets for other victims. What kind of assets? I asked. He's accumulated significant wealth from previous fraud operations. Real estate vehicles, bank accounts held under various business names. Asset forfeiture laws allow courts to redistribute recovered funds to verified victims. Madison looked up with swollen eyes. Will other families get their money back? Some of it depending on what we can recover and liquidate. Full restitution is rare in financial fraud cases, but your evidence strengthens the prosecution significantly. After Detective Williams left, my family sat in Madison's living room, confronting the wreckage of decisions made over the past months. The house that was supposed to provide stability had become a source of conflict and vulnerability. The mortgage payments that seemed manageable in theory were devastating in practice. But Ryan's arrest had also revealed deeper family dynamics that needed addressing. "Madison," I said carefully, "Detective Williams mentioned Ryan kept notes about family conversations that included threats you'd made to Mom and Dad." Madison's face crumpled with shame. "He said those were normal family dynamics, that everyone has conflicts with their parents. He encouraged me to set boundaries and demand respect for my independence." "What did he mean by setting boundaries?" Ellen asked gently. "Oh, when you guys would suggest I get a job or pay for things myself, he said you were trying to control me through financial manipulation. He said threatening to cut off contact was a healthy way to establish adult autonomy." Frank shook his head sadly. "Honey, threatening suicide isn't healthy boundary setting. That's psychological manipulation that hurts everyone involved." "I know that now. But when I was upset and Ryan was the only person who seemed to understand my feelings, his advice felt supportive instead of destructive." Trevor had been listening quietly, taking notes for potential civil litigation related to the property transfer. "Madison, the inheritance language in your grandfather's will specified equal distribution among grandchildren. The deed transfer to you alone violated those terms regardless of Ryan's involvement." "What does that mean for the house ownership?" "It means Garrett has legal standing to claim equal ownership rights, which would resolve the mortgage payment issue through shared responsibility." Madison looked at me with genuine remorse. "Would you want half ownership of this house even after everything I've put the family through?" I'd spent weeks angry about the unfair financial expectations and manipulation attempts, but sitting in that living room watching my sister realize how completely she'd been exploited, my anger transformed into protective determination. "Madison, I don't want to own part of this house. I want you to own a house you can actually afford in a situation that doesn't require family members to subsidize your independence." "What are you suggesting?" Trevor answered before I could. "Sell the house, split proceeds according to the grandfather's will, use Madison's portion to purchase something within her actual budget, while providing debt counseling and financial planning support." "That would mean giving up this house," Madison said quietly. "This house comes with $1,500 monthly payments you can't afford, property taxes you can't pay, and maintenance responsibilities you're not prepared for. Home ownership isn't about having the biggest possible house. It's about having shelter you can sustain independently." Madison walked through the rooms she'd planned to redecorate, seeing them now with realistic eyes instead of Ryan's manipulative fantasies. "I couldn't afford this place even if someone else paid the mortgage. Property taxes are $300 a month. Utilities run about $200. I'd need at least $2,000 monthly income just for basic housing costs." "How much do you actually earn?" Frank asked gently. "Nothing right now. The art gallery job ended 2 months ago, and I haven't found anything else yet. I've been living off credit cards and money I borrowed from you guys." Ellen sighed deeply. "Honey, we can't keep supporting an adult daughter indefinitely. Not because we don't love you, but because enabling your avoidance of responsibility isn't helping you build a sustainable life." "I know. Ryan made it seem like family support was normal and healthy, but I can see now that he was teaching me to be dependent and manipulative instead of independent and responsible." As the afternoon turned to evening, we developed a plan that would protect everyone's interests while addressing the root problems in our family dynamic. The house would be sold within 90 days. Proceeds would be split equally between Madison and me according to Grandpa Joe's will. Madison would use her portion as a down payment on a modest apartment or small condo within her realistic budget range. More importantly, Madison would begin legitimate therapy to address the psychological patterns that had made her vulnerable to Ryan's manipulation. She'd also start job searching with professional career counseling support. Frank and Ellen would attend family therapy sessions to learn healthier boundaries and communication patterns that didn't enable destructive behavior. "What about the mortgage payments until the house sells?" Madison asked. "We'll handle them together," I said. You'll contribute what you can from part-time work. Mom and Dad will contribute what they can from their fixed income, and I'll cover the difference. But everyone contributes something, and everyone participates in the solution. That seems fair, Madison agreed, and it gives me time to find work and plan for independent living. Trevor began drafting sale agreements while Detective Williams called with updates about Ryan's criminal case. Patterson's associates fled Colorado after learning about his arrest, but we've recovered approximately $120,000 from bank accounts connected to his organization. Victim restitution should provide partial compensation for families who lost money in previous schemes. As we prepared to leave Madison's house that evening, she stopped me at the front door. Garrett, I'm sorry for everything. The manipulation, the threats, the entitlement. I genuinely thought I deserved special treatment because life had been unfair to me. Ryan encouraged that thinking because it made me easier to control. Madison, we're family. Family means supporting each other through genuine problems, not enabling destructive behavior. This situation forced all of us to learn healthier ways of caring for each other. Do you think I can actually build an independent life? Sometimes I'm scared I'm too damaged or irresponsible to take care of myself. I think you're stronger than you realize. But strength comes from facing problems honestly, not from manipulating other people into solving them for you. 6 months later, Madison would be living in her own one-bedroom apartment, working part-time at a local bookstore, while pursuing online art courses. She'd learned to manage her own budget, pay her own bills, and maintain relationships without threats or manipulation. But that evening, driving home from the confrontation that changed everything, I felt hopeful that my family could heal from years of dysfunction and build healthier patterns for the future. 6 months after Ryan's arrest, I received a call from Detective Williams with news that would provide closure for multiple families across the Rocky Mountain region. Mr. Davidson, the federal prosecution wrapped up yesterday. Patterson pleaded guilty to 18 felony counts of fraud, identity theft, and racketeering. He'll serve 8 to 12 years in federal prison. Ryan's criminal organization had been more extensive than anyone initially realized. FBI investigators traced connections to similar schemes in 7 states involving 43 victims and over $2 million in fraudulent transactions. What about asset recovery? I asked. Excellent news on that front. Federal marshals seized 3 properties, multiple vehicles, and bank accounts totaling nearly $800,000. Victim restitution will return about 60% of documented losses. Madison would receive approximately $15,000 from the restitution fund money that helped establish her emergency savings account and provided security for her new independent life. The federal investigation also revealed how sophisticated Ryan's targeting system had been. His organization monitored public records for inheritance transfers, divorce settlements, and insurance payouts, then deployed different associates to approach vulnerable individuals in each targeted community. Your sister's case was particularly valuable to the prosecution because her family's cooperation provided recorded evidence of the psychological manipulation tactics used across multiple operations, Detective Williams explained. The house sale had concluded 3 months earlier, proceeding smoothly once the fraudulent mortgage complications were resolved. The $400,000 sale price minus real estate fees and the remaining legitimate mortgage balance provided each of us with approximately $170,000. Madison used her portion wisely, surprising everyone who'd watched her struggle with financial responsibility for years. She purchased a modest 2-bedroom townhome in Thornton for $120,000, providing herself with affordable home ownership while maintaining a $50,000 savings cushion. I never realized how much stress comes from living beyond your means, she told me during one of our monthly family dinners. When every bill is manageable and you have money in savings, you can actually enjoy your home instead of constantly worrying about losing it. The therapy sessions had been transformational for our entire family. Madison worked with a counselor who specialized in psychological manipulation recovery learning to recognize and resist the emotional patterns that had made her vulnerable to Ryan's exploitation. Frank and Ellen attended family systems therapy to address decades of enabling behavior that had prevented Madison from developing healthy coping skills. "We thought we were helping by giving you everything you wanted," Ellen admitted during one particularly emotional session. "But we were actually preventing you from learning that you could handle life's difficulties yourself." "The hardest part," Madison replied, "was realizing that my struggles weren't unique or unfair. Everyone faces disappointments and setbacks. The difference is whether you learn from them or use them to manipulate other people into fixing your problems." My parents had restructured their own finances after Madison moved out. Without the burden of supporting an adult daughter and her various crises, Frank and Ellen discovered they could live comfortably on their retirement income, while even saving small amounts each month. "We'd been so focused on Madison's immediate needs that we never planned for our own future security," Frank explained. "Now we're building an emergency fund and considering long-term care insurance." Madison's job at Tattered Cover Bookstore had evolved from part-time employment into assistant manager responsibilities. Her artistic background proved valuable for creating window displays and organizing author events, providing creative fulfillment within a stable employment structure. "I always thought creative people couldn't handle conventional jobs," Madison reflected. "But it turns out creativity actually makes you better at problem solving and working with different types of people." She'd also begun dating again, but with dramatically different standards and awareness. Her new boyfriend, David, was a high school science teacher who appreciated her artistic perspective while maintaining his own financial independence and emotional stability. "The biggest difference is that David encourages me to pursue my own goals instead of promising to solve all my problems," Madison explained. "Real love supports your growth instead of exploiting your vulnerabilities." The federal prosecutor's office had invited Madison to speak at law enforcement conferences about recognizing and reporting romance fraud schemes. Her firsthand experience with psychological manipulation provided valuable insights for training programs designed to protect other potential victims. "Ryan taught me that predators look for people who feel like victims," Madison told a conference audience in Colorado Springs. "They offer themselves as rescuers, while actually creating dependency and financial vulnerability. The best protection is learning that you don't need rescuing. You need skills and support for solving your own problems." Our monthly family dinners had become genuine celebrations instead of crisis management meetings. We gathered at rotating locations, sharing updates about work projects, travel plans, and personal achievements without the underlying tension that had characterized our interactions for years. "Remember when we used to walk on eggshells around each other?" Ellen observed during dinner at Madison's townhome. "Everyone was afraid of saying something that would trigger an emotional crisis." "I remember feeling like I had to choose between enabling Madison or abandoning family loyalty," I admitted. "It never occurred to me that real loyalty sometimes requires refusing to participate in destructive patterns." Frank raised his glass of iced tea in a toast. "To learning that love sometimes means saying no to things that seem helpful, but actually cause harm." "And to discovering that we're all stronger than we thought," Madison added, "even when that strength comes from facing uncomfortable truths about ourselves." The legal resolution had validated my initial refusal to pay mortgage payments on a house I didn't own, but the personal resolution was far more valuable. Our family had confronted and healed patterns of dysfunction that had been building for decades. Trevor's law firm had used our case as a model for protecting families from inheritance fraud schemes. The combination of criminal prosecution and civil asset protection had become a template for other attorneys dealing with similar situations. The key lesson, Trevor explained during a legal education seminar, is that financial fraud often exploits existing family dysfunctions. Protecting the assets requires addressing the relationship patterns that created vulnerability in the first place. Madison's recovery from psychological manipulation had been the most dramatic transformation. She'd evolved from someone who used emotional threats to control family members into someone who took responsibility for her own choices and their consequences. The therapy helped me understand that threatening suicide to get money wasn't just manipulation. It was self-destruction, Madison explained. I was teaching myself that my life only had value if other people were willing to sacrifice for me. What changed your perspective? I asked. Realizing that Ryan was using the same tactics on me that I'd been using on you and Mom and Dad. When I experienced being manipulated by someone who didn't actually care about my well-being, I understood how destructive those patterns really are. The recovery process had also strengthened my own boundaries and decision-making confidence. Standing up to family pressure had been difficult, but it ultimately saved relationships that would have been destroyed by continued enabling and manipulation. I learned that protecting someone you love sometimes requires disappointing them in the short term. I reflected during a conversation with Trevor. If I'd given in to the mortgage payment demands, Madison would never have faced the reality of her situation, and Ryan would have successfully drained our family's resources. Plus, your parents would have lost their retirement security, and Madison would eventually have lost the house anyway when the debt became unsustainable, Trevor added. The federal investigation's conclusion had provided a sense of justice that extended beyond our family. Ryan's 8-year prison sentence meant other families would be protected from his schemes, while the asset forfeiture had recovered significant funds for previous victims. 43 families got some of their money back because your family had the courage to report the fraud and cooperate with the investigation, Detective Williams noted during her final case update. As Autumn returned to Denver a year after the crisis began, I found myself grateful for the painful lessons that had emerged from what initially seemed like simple family selfishness. Madison's townhome hosted Thanksgiving dinner that year, a gathering that would have been impossible during her previous emotional instability. She'd prepared most of the meal herself, managed her budget to afford quality ingredients, and created an atmosphere of genuine gratitude rather than manufactured family obligation. A year ago, I thought gratitude meant other people giving me things I wanted, Madison said during the traditional pre-dinner reflection. This year, I'm grateful for learning that I can create the life I want through my own choices and efforts. I'm grateful we learned the difference between helping and enabling, Ellen added, and for discovering that our family is stronger when everyone takes responsibility for their own choices. Frank nodded thoughtfully. I'm grateful Garrett had the courage to say no to our unreasonable demands. If he just paid those mortgage payments, we'd all be worse off now. I'm grateful for learning that protecting families sometimes requires allowing them to face the consequences of their decisions, I concluded, and for discovering that love means supporting each other's growth, not preventing each other's learning. The legal case had been resolved, the family relationships had been healed, and Madison had built a sustainable, independent life. But perhaps most importantly, we'd all learned that genuine family support means encouraging responsibility and growth, not enabling dependency and manipulation. As we shared Thanksgiving dinner in Madison's modest but comfortable townhome, I realized that sometimes the most loving thing you can say to family is a firm but caring no to requests that would ultimately harm everyone involved. Ryan Patterson would spend the next decade in federal prison. His criminal organization had been dismantled, and 43 families across 7 states had received at least partial restitution for their losses. But the real victory was watching Madison transform from a manipulative victim into a confident, independent adult who contributed positively to her community and maintained healthy relationships based on mutual respect rather than financial exploitation. The final irony was that Madison's smaller, affordable townhome brought her more happiness and security than the $400,000 house she'd initially thought she deserved. True security comes not from having the most expensive possessions, but from building the skills and relationships that allow you to take care of yourself while contributing meaningfully to the lives of people you care about. As we cleared dishes that evening, Madison smiled with the quiet satisfaction of someone who'd learned that self-respect comes from earning what you have not, from manipulating others into providing it. "You know what's funny?" she said, loading her own dishwasher in her own kitchen that she could actually afford. "This is the first Thanksgiving where I'm not worried about money, not angry at anyone in the family, and not depending on someone else to solve my problems. Turns out independence feels a lot better than entitlement." That was the moment I knew our family had truly healed from the crisis that had begun with a simple text message demanding I pay mortgage on a house I'd never agreed to support. Sometimes the best thing that can happen to a family is being forced to confront uncomfortable truths about destructive patterns that everyone had learned to accept as normal. Our crisis with Madison's house had revealed and resolved years of dysfunction, ultimately making us all stronger, healthier, and more genuinely connected than we'd ever been before. The lesson that emerged from our experience was both simple and profound. Real love requires boundaries. Genuine help builds independence rather than dependency. And sometimes the most caring thing you can do for family is refuse to enable behavior that prevents them from growing into the strong, capable people they have the potential to become. What's your experience with family members who expect financial support without taking responsibility? Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and protecting your boundaries? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for more real-life family drama stories, and share it with anyone who might benefit from learning about healthy family boundaries. Thanks for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you navigate your own challenging family situations with wisdom and courage.